Das hörbare Magazin der TOS.
Eddie James, Gospel- und Soul-Musiker aus den USA, auch bekannt aus den Charts, war wieder in Tübingen bei der Awakening Fire-Konferenz. Mit seiner Musik will er junge Menschen für Jesus gewinnen und begeistern. Wie Eddie James das macht und wie sein Dienst entstanden ist, das erfahrt ihr in diesem Offensiv-Interview, das Jonathan Mall für uns mit Eddie James geführt hat. Das Gespräch war auf Englisch. Falls ihr Eddies Antworten also nochmal auf Deutsch nachlesen möchtet, abonniert am besten die Printausgabe der Offensiv. Und jetzt zum Interview mit Eddie James.
Thanks a lot for coming, Eddie James, to be part of this Offensiv-Interview. Eddie James, you're a gospel musician, Christian gospel musician, founder of Eddie James Ministry and also of the program Dream Life. I think we're going to talk about it later. And we're so privileged to have you here. You came to Tübingen and to Germany several times. And I think it's always a little effort to organize it, to come with so many young people. And I just like to start the interview with the question, why did you make the effort? And how is it for you to be back in Germany again?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, I so appreciate you allowing us to share with you and your audience what's in my heart and what the Lord has done in my life. I love TOS Ministries. I love this church. It's very dear to my heart, very dear. I love Pastor Yops and Charlotte like family, you know. The whole ministry here is just very dear to me. And I make the effort to raise funds and to expose the young people I've been called to mentor, to develop, to raise them up, because I want them to experience firsthand genuine ministries that I believe in, ministries that I believe have a kingdom heart, that understand what God is looking for, what he's wanting in their generation. And so it's one thing for me to sit them in a classroom and teach them principles, but it's another thing for them to see those principles walked out in people's lives. And when we come here to Germany to TOS Ministries, I believe they really get to see up close and personal what the Lord is doing and what he is speaking into the earth today. TOS Ministries' heart for Germany, their heart for Israel, the prophetic edge they have, the arts and how they embrace all of that as a church. I want my team to see that in a local church setting. And so that's why we make the effort to come.
And so your ministry, like you said, it is not only about music or worshiping Jesus, even though many of us here in Europe and Germany do know you because of your music, but there is so much more in your ministry. It's about saving a generation, saving young people, getting them off the street. And so in your sermon the other day, you said something quite interesting, because you felt that in America and also in Europe, you see that there are not many fathers, not many spiritual fathers. And last year you celebrated 30 years of your ministry, and like we see it, you're touring with many young people, so you're really a father for many. And so I just wondered about your own story. How did you become a spiritual father for so many? And maybe we can start with your own childhood. You said that you were living in a quite difficult neighborhood, but you had a mother teaching you to follow the Lord, and she did not let something of the difficulties enter your house. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your childhood and how the Lord called you to do what you're doing now.
Appreciate that. So I grew up in an area in America called Arizona. That's the state. The city is called Phoenix, Arizona. And my mom and dad are both, to this day, ministers. They're pastors, leaders of a church. But when I was a child, I gave my life to the Lord when I was 8 years old. I started playing instruments when I was 6. I started playing drums when I was 6. And I started singing when I was 9. and started playing keyboards when I was 11. And I want to, when it comes to what I do for young people, I think maybe this is a good place to reflect, because I was around older people who wanted to activate what was inside the younger generation. They had a heart to pull on the anointings and the giftings and the talents that were in us. They believed in us, and wanted to celebrate that in us. And they gave us space. I would play drums, and when I got to anywhere good enough to play in the main church, they'd put me in there. I'd be 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, playing drums in the main sanctuary. And that's not necessarily something you see often today, but then they had a heart to cultivate what was inside of me. And so, fast forward, I go to high school and start a ministry on my high school campus, and wanted to reach the lost on my campus. We were charged to Acts 1 and 8, be a witness, go to your school and be a witness. And so we went there, and I did it through singing. So I formed a group, and we would sing several times a week before class and during lunch. And we saw God do some great things there. And then I went into full-time ministry when I was 18 years old. I became a worship pastor at age 18. And I've been doing full-time ministry ever since. But the church I started at as a full-time worship leader at age 18, they had what is called Teen Challenge. It's a Christian recovery program. And I had never heard of a recovery program until this moment in my life. I grew up in a rough neighborhood, and we saw drugs in our neighborhood. We saw violence in our neighborhood, and had much compassion for it. But outside of going to church and going on the altar and praying and believing God for breakthrough, we didn't know how to truly meet that need. And here's a ministry that was in our community that I did not know about, that I wish our church had known about this, because there are young people who died that I think would have been saved had they known that they could leave their neighborhood, leave their environment, and get into a place where they can experience freedom and liberty and walk it out. So that became a huge part of my journey as I'm leading worship at age 18, but I'm loving this Teen Challenge ministry, this recovery that takes them out of the environment for a year, sponsors everything, cares for their housing, their food, everything. And then when I went into traveling full time in 2002, it just kind of became a part of what I did. And so
Dream Life already existed and you entered it, or?
No, this ministry was called Teen Challenge.
Okay.
Right? And so Teen Challenge became the inspiration for when I started traveling and doing my own ministry. And that was in 2002. And my program, Dream Life, started initially, there was a young man who came to a studio production that I was doing in Nashville, Tennessee, and he was Muslim. And he had an encounter with God. He had never been to church, had never been exposed to anything Christian. But my guitar player at the time was his friend. And so he brought him to the studio production, and he had an encounter with God. And he goes home to tell his parents, and they kicked him out of his home. So he contacts me and says, I don't have a place to live. I've been kicked out because I'm Christian. So I had him come and stay with me. And he was the first person I ever brought into my home. Now, we didn't call it Dream Life. I was just trying to help a kid out, And then I came home from school, from shopping one day, and grocery shopping, and he's in my living room floor with two other guys who were addicts that he just won to the Lord. And he didn't want them to go back to where they were living. He wanted them to stay at my house. So I agreed to that and said, okay, that's cool. And then that turned into 4 more people, and then that doubled to 8. And in about a year and a half, I've got 16 guys all coming out of the streets, living in my home as I'm traveling to different spaces and places to release Jesus. And so about a year and a half to 2 years of that happening, God began to deal with my heart that this is more than just me trying to help a few guys out. This has become a part of who I am and what I'm assigned to do. So the Lord gave me the name Dream Life. And that's how that started. Yeah.
So it's one thing to live a Christian way of life, not being affected by the world, but it's a whole other thing to live a life that affects the world and changes your neighborhood. And so this is what happened with you. And I think there's something we can learn. You just made the first steps, and nowadays Dream Life is a program, I think scheduled, that people are coming in and they have several
Oh yeah, it's pretty
trainings.
powerful. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you take them with you on the tours. How do you reach those people? They have difficult backgrounds, drugs, you said it, other addictions. How is it working? They come to Dream Life, and what do they learn? What do you teach them?
Mm-hmm. So we have a curriculum that the Lord has given me over the years. We call it Discipleship in Arts, DNA. And we take them through that. It's 12 core values and 6 pillars that we teach every student that comes into our program. And they come to us in a variety of ways. Some people find it online. Some, probably 60 to 70% of them is through my travel, though. You know, as I'm touring across America, you know, we come across people who have children or young people who were invited to the event. They're the worst of their community, and something happens in their heart and they want to change. And so we grab them and get them out of their situation. And so there's a variety of ways where we, you know, acquire them. And so our base, we're transitioning it right now, but our base currently is in Tennessee. We have, this property there where we've housed so many that's come in. I mean, hundreds have come through that place, you know, and so I don't travel all of them. I usually take those who I think can handle it, you know, that are ready, and I'll do some personal mentoring with that. I usually make them, you know, PAs or bring them close to me. But then the rest is handled by our program director. You know, we have a whole, you know, set up with that and staff and all of that we do. So, yes, sir.
And as you are a father for those people, I think you know their stories. Maybe you can share some of the testimonies.
Oh goodness.
Or one,
I can share
maybe.
so many. For those who are with me currently, that, you know, with me in Germany and all of that, some powerful stories. I'll say for Brady, for an example, he was one that we came to a service in Georgia. He saw us there, and he was addicted and homeless, and his friend brought him to our service. And Brady's story is pretty powerful. You know, his parents died when he was 11, and that became I would say the foundation for why he eventually became an addict, and, you know, just not dealing with that grief and that emptiness. And so he not only got into drug addiction, but into some organized crime and just different things he was involved in. And by the time we connected, which is about 2 years ago, he was highly in debt, and he didn't think he could come to the program. We met after that service, but he thought due to his financial challenges, he wouldn't be able to come. But after we talked that initial Sunday night, within the next 24 to 48 hours, somebody came forward who didn't know that we had talked and what he was trying to do, paid off all his debts. Thousands of dollars. Somebody just stepped up and just released him from all of that financial pressure. And he also was on probation because he had been in and out of jail. His he didn't think he'd be able to come because my program was in Tennessee. He lived in Georgia in a different state, so he couldn't cross state lines. But the the probation officer, his grandmother took him to go meet with them, and God moved upon their hearts, dropped his probation. All he had to do is pay a little fee and take a little class, and other than that, they sent him to Georgia, from Georgia to Tennessee, to our program, and the Lord just met him. It just changed his life. And so he's one that attended a service, and God allowed us to grab him from that. But then there's another young man, Luke, for an example. He didn't grow up in church, didn't have any church background. Somehow his mom stumbled onto our site. I'm still trying to figure out, of all the sites, all the recovery programs she could find, how she found us. But she did. And now Luke had been in and out of mental institutions, rehabs, and in jail from age 15 to 22 years old. So that's been pretty much his life. And if he wasn't in jail or in rehab or in some mental institution, he was using and doing something crazy in the streets, homeless. He was just lost, just out there. Lost his sister to addiction, lost his girlfriend to addiction. He overdosed several times, and it's a miracle that he's alive. But the last time he was in jail, like I said, his mom found our program online and talked to the judge to see if they would allow him to come to our program for a year. And the only way the judge would do it is that he had to sign guilty to every charge that was against him. So he signed guilty to that, to every charge. He was okay with going to prison. He felt like he was going to die in the streets. It was inevitable. So maybe prison would somehow prolong his life and it wouldn't be so bad. So he signed guilty to every charge. And so they gave him a year to come be with us. So he came, and 2 months in, I have a conference, kind of like what we do here in to begin, Awakening Fire. Our conference is called Shift. And so he came to our Shift conference. I usually have my recovery programs come to my conferences anyway. So our recovery program brought him and all of the students to our Shift conference. And at the time, he's not Christian. He just wants God to reveal himself because, he never grew up in church. He doesn't know what God is real. And man, the Lord met him, and somebody came and prayed for him and prayed for God to reveal himself to him. And he had an encounter with Jesus, and it was real to him. And that took him on a journey to seek the Lord and serve the Lord. And he really gave his entire being to the Lord during that time. And so 10 months after that, we have to go back to court, and he goes before the judge, and the judge is so moved by the change that he was just in tears over it. And he asked the court, what should the sentencing be? And they suggested for him to go to prison for 25 years. He says, I can't do that. And so he gave a sentence of 25 years suspended and a 3-year non-supervised probation. That's just unheard of sentencing. And he walked out of that court a free man, and he is serving the Lord strong to this day. And so he's been a graduate for a year now. So and his birthday is October 31st. And I shared this with the people here during the conference that the October 31st, 2022 is when he first came into our program. October 31st, 2023 is when he graduated the program. October 31st, 2024, he's now here with us in Germany. And it's just been amazing to see this kind of journey in his life, so it's powerful.
Yeah, these are really powerful testimonies and show that the good news is not some theoretically interesting news, but it really something changing the lives of
God
people.
is real, man.
And His love is real.
Yes.
I think this is so powerful. And I wonder what is happening to the people living with you for 1 year, for 2 years. Some of those are now worship leaders on their own in different churches. Some of those get famous through Maverick music. And do you send them out all, or what is?
Sure. So we have a music and performing arts program in our ministry and Dream Life. Dream Life and Entertainment Ministries, though we work together, they're two separate organizations because we really target Dream Life for the addicts. But then we have the music and arts program. And, but like I said, they work together. Some people fall into both, you know. They are very gifted, but addicted at the same time. And so, you know, we just work through it. But we don't have a cookie cutter program. You know, for Dream Life, I ask for at least a year. And I do the same thing for the recovery, for the music and arts program. But my encouragement is if you do this right, let's release you when it's time. When you have truly developed your character and your craft, your gifting, and your spirit, man, to the place where it's ready for the next season of what God has for you. Because it's different per person. People come with different circumstances, different situations, different talent levels, different levels of their walk with God. So we try not to do a one-size-fits-all program. We do have some kind of a structure, but we try to take each person and see where they're at and determine if they're ready. And the Lord's been gracious to us. I mean, some of the most powerful worship movements in the world have had people from my ministry in it, like Maverick City, Elevation Worship, Bethel Worship. Some of the songs you hear, some of the people leading worship in those places came from EJM. You know, I brought them to Germany, you know, and to see their lives impacting the world like that is incredible. And I have tons of them leading worship or pastoring or starting their own worship ministries, and they were all raised here. So God's been gracious to us. Yeah.
It's really a blessing and impacts so many people. And so I think you can tell something also about passing on an anointing, because we believe that, and can read it in the Bible, the Lord's talking about faith going from generation to generation and growing from generation to generation. And I wonder, maybe you have, for the end of the interview, some keys for the younger generation. Like you said, there are not many fathers. How can this change? How can we do steps to become fathers? Maybe not from the beginning for everyone needs to found a ministry, but to become a father for your neighborhood, for people that surround you. How can we grow in having this heart?
Well, I want to first say to men to, one, have the heart to father, have a desire. It's to me, it seems as if culture today is so all about their own career and their own, you know, desires for achievement and accomplishment and to feel like they've done something great for themselves, that they don't seem to have the heart to pass that to the next generation, to pass their creativity, their gifting, and their character of their heart, to pass it down. It's just, I'm going to get mine, I'm going to do me, you know, I'm going to get to where I'm successful. And, you know, and I've, you know, when I think of what the Jewish culture does, I think, to me, some may call it apprenticeship, but I feel like that they have been such an example of passing who they are to the next generation. It's almost like the whole goal of a dad's life is to raise up the next dad, you know, to raise up the next generation of leaders who would father and mother a generation. And I feel like we've lost that somehow in the church. But I want to encourage people to do that. And it's really allowing people to invade your space, because that's what it means. You have to let people into your space. And I think, again, people are very selfish or self-centered when it comes to that. They just want to be left alone, or they don't want to have to, open up who they are. And because it's one thing for me to sit in a room and give you a workshop and teach music, or, you don't get to know me. I'm just teaching you a craft, and then I walk away from you, you walk away from me. I hope you're great. But to then have you in my home, in my vehicle, around my space, to see what my life is like, that's a different level of, interaction and intimacy that I think a lot of people need. I don't know that we have been good at that. And I don't know why we are not open to that. But a lot of fathers particularly are not truly open to, it doesn't have to be a lot of people, just two or maybe one or two people that you would just pour yourself into. Let them see how you pray. Let them see how you handle and navigate challenges. Let them see how you handle a mistake. You do something that you shouldn't have. Maybe you popped off at the mouth in a way you shouldn't have. How do you respond to that? How do you go back and say, I'm sorry? How do you repent? They're not exposed to that. They don't get to see that. And I think that what I've found to be very helpful with the young people that do get the chance to be around me like that, I think that's what is most meaningful, is we get the chance to do life together, to connect and they get to see, what it's like to do this thing. And I also think it's good for fathers because you live your life for a purpose greater than yourself. If I ever, now, it's been like this for years for me, but if I have to think about what I'm going to say. I have to think about how I'm going to respond, because I'm not just thinking about me anymore. I've got people watching me who's looking at my example. And if my example is not healthy, then I am giving a message that's not appropriate. So I can't just think about what I'm feeling. I have to think about, how do I be an example of handling this, though I am very upset right now. I could choke somebody, but I cannot respond that way because I don't want to teach that to the next generation, So then it puts me on my face and say, God, give me the right heart, give me the right spirit. Help me to do this in a way that pleases you. Because if I'm doing that, then I am also an example to the ones who are watching me. And it has, in other words, sometimes fathering like this, it has a way of bringing accountability to the father, because if you truly want to pass Jesus to the next generation, you got to lead by example. You got to be, a reflection of the nature and character of Christ. And maybe people don't want to father because they maybe don't want to have that level of pressure, if you will. They don't want to have to be accountable for their actions. But to me, it's the greatest joy of my life. I wouldn't want it any other way. I love the fact that I get to watch people come from a broken place and begin to mature in the things of God and in things of life, and to watch them become fathers and watch them become mothers and watch them become ministry owners or business owners or move into life. Like, it's just a beautiful thing to see. So.
Wow, it's really amazing to see you and share this. I think
appreciate that.
Learn a lot. Maybe many see you on stage worshiping the Lord, but you said it's something that's not only happening on the stage, but this is your personal heart, your personal relationship to Jesus, because you can only give to the next generation what you experience yourself and experiences what you experience daily. So what is your daily habit to encounter the Lord and have refreshing encounters with it?
Well, I definitely have this, I call it my Eddie James prayer model. That's just kind of a personal thing for me. There's three concepts. So there's one that is the Lord's Prayer, and I'll just kind of take each phrase of that and pray that through. Our Father, I just begin to, in that section, just begin to declare attributes of God. He's Father, He's Abba, He's Elohim, He's Adonai, which art in heaven, Lord, your throne, you have dominion, you have authority. I just begin to go through each one of those and I just pray those out. And sometimes I'll pray Psalm 119. I love Psalm 119. It's so full of prayers that it's like each like every eight verses is like an alphabet. I don't know if you've ever seen Psalm 119, but it's the longest chapter in the Bible. But it's all the alphabet, Hebrew alphabet is there, and a lot of it contains prayers. And so when I want language for my heart or my engagement with the Word or His presence, I'll pray Psalm 119. Another thing that I would use as a method, I met this guy who's from Congo, Africa. He lives in Texas, and he gave us this prayer model that is pretty awesome, where you start with praise, and then you go into repentance, and then you go into blood cleansing, and then you go into baptism of the Holy Spirit, asking God to increase your fire, and then you go into warfare. Now, man, that whew, I love that. It's a great model to pray. So those are some of the methods that I use to engage with the Lord. And and they'll tell you this, most every night I'm playing the Word while I'm sleeping. I play scripture all the time. It's a big thing for me. I get stuck on a specific song for my worship intimacy. Right now it's Yeshua. And so every time I'm in a place where I'm just going to encounter God and worship God, I'll play that and just put it on repeat and just, allow His presence to just wash me, I'll find a person who's preaching truth in a very powerful way, and I'll listen to that a lot. And so, I just try to saturate my day, all night in Him, and everything I do, whatever I'm working on, I'm doing it with Him with me, with Him in my, I'm in His presence. I'm seeking His face in everything that I'm doing. So.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your testimony and for being here and worshiping. I think there will be another service today.
Yeah.
So you will be in preparation soon. Thank you so much for having you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for interviewing me. I love it.
Wenn dir die Folge gefallen hat, dann hör gerne auch die anderen nach und vergiss nicht zu abonnieren. Wir freuen uns über euer Feedback und auch über finanzielle Unterstützung. Weitere Informationen und aktuelle Veranstaltungen der TOS-Gemeinde findest du auf tos.info. Danke fürs Zuhören und bis zum nächsten Mal.